Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters Mannix, Kales, Gillian, George, or Theron, go away or not wanted here at all. But for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. If you would like to support the channel, check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, and Will, and Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos David Vicente Gilberto, Sean aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Aukshi. Thank you all for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster with software with Streamlabs. And for video sharing, we use Discord. Speaking of Discord, I did officially start a Discord server specifically for this channel. It's got multiple public chat channels in there. We can talk about mainly D&D, but video games and tabletop games in general. There is also a private patron-only channel, as well as audio channel that patrons of Patreon can access as well. You can find a link to the Discord server in my main YouTube page, where it's got a little links up there in the upper right corner, so check that out. Alright, so Tomb of Annihilation. We're still not quite done with Oralunga. Hey Mike, this has been a bigger dungeon than I anticipated. I did anticipate this one room to take up pretty much the entirety of the session last time, which was the case. We can definitely unpack kind of what was going on here. And it's funny how balancing in D&D is a challenge at all times because of the fact that it's still a dice-based game, and anything can go for or against you based on the roll of the dice. And in the case of this battle, I think it made a big difference that the players made all of their saving throws. They did have to use inspiration a few times, but they were never in danger of having the suggestion cast on them, nor the basilisk's petrifying gaze. So they were able to withstand all of that. I felt like they had a pretty good tactical beat on how to handle this fight. I think they pretty much beat me on initiative across the board, which for some reason I can roll pretty well on attacks this campaign, but I can't do shit on initiative, which is always a bummer. It wasn't terribly difficult for them, though. Theron actually rushed in here as a bear, which definitely fucked things up for me, but it's funny because that is kind of his MO. That's what he does. He just morphs into bear form and runs in there and absorbs a lot of hits, which is interesting and frustrating as a DM because you want people to try to take care of that bear, but also it's just all temporary hit points, so it's really not very meaningful. But that is a cool tactic that he does. He did correctly try to free the Naga, and I kind of had to come up with rules on the fly that the Naga had to be free for like a solid round, and that the Brood Guards would try to, get back on there, and just a couple of athletics checks, I think, for them to keep the Naga in chains. But Theron persisted and did very well at freeing the Naga, and then I rained hell with the Naga. And that was partly, I was kind of deciding on how best to use the Naga in combat if they had freed it. I know I was using it as a balancing tool. If things were going south for the players, I could have had the Naga get free and use some powerful abilities. Instead, the players were doing quite well, and I still had the Naga use powerful abilities, but kind of as a reward for them really doing a good job of freeing the Naga, making that a priority, correctly surmising that the Naga would help them in combat, and they had no idea what the Naga was capable of, so it was a fun kind of DM flex to be able to suddenly do this orbital laser beam attack and then have it spit at and do all this like insane amounts of damage. The players are like, oh shit, that's pretty cool that it's that powerful of a creature that we just freed and is now on our side. So I thought that was just kind of a neat thing to do. And I figure once the Naga is free, the cadence of the battle has kind of reached its zenith, and now the rest of it is kind of just cleaning up action. So I figure I could kind of just keep things going and keep the pace running and just let the Naga kind of kick ass along with the players. It was very comical to me that they all ended up jumping into a snake pit to fight a basilisk. That is not at all how I saw that happening. Hello, Rain and Ranger. But George used his Vine Whip sword really, really well. I mean, when you have a pit Obviously, as a DM, I'm going to try to use that pit, but the players especially are going to use that pit and used it rather effectively. So he was grabbing that basilisk and yanking it into a pit of snakes. I did not roll for any necessarily damage or anything down there. I just kind of said, "Oh yeah, it's going to get hurt," and I don't think I even adjusted its hit points because basilisks aren't that beefy to begin with. Um, but it did take the basilisk out of several rounds and had it have to clamber back up and do all that. So it was a really interesting tactic, and the basilisk down there like stoning all the snakes, and that was fun. I thought that was a neat thing, and again, I want to reward the players for doing fun, clever things, and God, they had so many crits and all these things. So this was supposed to be the big climactic boss battle, and really did not hardly force anybody to break a sweat, other than the DM and collectively controlled Gillian, because Rochelle wasn't here last week. Got damaged quite a bit because we ran in there, she got hurt, and then we just ran her back out. I don't think anybody else even so much got touched other than Theron's bear form, which, again, just temporary hit points. So they went through it with sparkling colors way more than I thought they would, which means that stupid hallway gargoyle fight was way more challenging for my players than this giant climactic boss battle. That's just the way it goes sometimes. That's just the way it goes. But I thought it was still fun from a story standpoint and from a tactical standpoint. So even though it wasn't a challenging battle in really any way, I thought it was still a fun battle. And it never really felt like the PCs were necessarily kicking ass like they can in some fights that make them trivial. I still feel like it was, people were still kind of leaning forward during, the saving throws they had to make and all those things. So it still felt like it was a dynamically fun, enjoyable fight, even though it wasn't necessarily like a test of their wills or strengths or even even the slightest bit of challenge. So, oh well. But I was still pleased with the way the fight went. I was hoping it would be a little more challenging for the players, but I do think it was a fun battle. The Oracle provided a lot of information that was useful for the PCs, which I have gone back and updated their quest log. Something I do in Roll20 that I would highly recommend is basically creating a video game style quest journal, so that your players and you as the DM, obviously I've got my Google Doc notes I can look through, but this way everybody can just remember what the hell is going on in a campaign that's going to last over a year of real world time. And I've got separated by personal quests. All the players have their own personal quests, kind of like a BioWare Mass Effect, and then the active quests and completed quests, different subheadings. And what I do as a DM is I will go through and actually update these in various sessions where they specifically progress that quest to the next step. Again, like a video game journal where you would see like those new entries being made that kind of gives you information. So something I wrote a big chunk of just a few minutes before I went live here is to add like everything they learned about Omu and Rosnisi. They learned the location of Omu, which is a big fucking thing to learn in this campaign. That's one of your most important things, is where do we actually need to go. They basically learned it right here. They also learned about Rosnisi and the UNT, the fact that Rosnisi is maybe not happy with the Alliance, and perhaps the players could even work with that. I teased all that information, as well as the fact that there's a tomb built by Acerak beneath Omu, and that's where they ultimately need to go. So they really progressed the main quest here, which was kind of the goal, because they need to either learn that information, I believe, from this Oracle or from Valindra and the Heart of Ubtao, which is, I believe, where the players are heading next. And so they'll probably learn a little bit less about that information since they got it here, and instead learn about like the fact that the Red Wizards are here in Omu, and they're like another faction that I can introduce, which I think will be interesting, which means I don't think they're going to run into any Red Wizards until they actually get to Omu, however, because the Red Wizards would kind of know where Omu was, so they would be all between basically the Heart of Ubtao and Omu, and the players, I don't see them ever venturing in that southern half. Hello, Jerry and Barry. Welcome all. As I mentioned, Discord server is up. You can check that out on my YouTube page. That's already really fun to have that up and have people chatting in there. The players still sound like they want to deal... We're not quite done with Oralunga, though, because it sounds like they do want to deal with this wyvern before they long rest, which I did mention to them last session that they will get a chance to long rest here in Oralunga as a safe place. And again, long resting is a big deal in this campaign because they can only do it at very certain places. And then they will be able to level up to 5. So finally, those of you that have been humorously complaining that the party needs to level up from all their trials and tribulations, I agree with you. I have stretched them out as long as I possibly can in the low, because again, Chult, according to the book, is basically written for levels 1 through 5. And we're 30 sessions into the campaign and we've barely scratched the surface of the hex grid. I think maybe we've gone through, generously would be 1/3 of the like physical jungle content, and I've been shoving things closer and more densely packing the campaign so that they've been doing a lot more than they even would normally be with that area that they're in. So I was hoping to drag them on even a little further, but at this point they've been level 4 for quite a number of sessions. I don't have those notes in front of me right now, but it's been a while. So they are due for level 5, and ideally I want to keep them at level 5. Let's actually bounce back over to, so I can look at the map while I'm doing it. Pretty much for the rest of the upper level of Chult if I can, and that's probably going to be quite a number of sessions. Ideally, here's my ideal plan, and I realize as a DM, you know, we can laugh about how the plans go to shit as soon as the players get involved, but generally my players have actually been following things pretty closely and done a pretty good job. Even with this open hex grid, you know, you put points of interest on the map, they're going to go to those points of interest. At least my players are. Shout out to those of you that have campaigns that your players just randomly go in a random direction. I would be freaking out. So they've done all of this. I mean, you can see this is, again, generously 1/3 of the campaign. Well, I guess there's really nothing down here because I shoved everything else up here. We might have done half the jungle, I think. Camp Righteous, Yeliark, Camp Vengeance, Mabala, Oralunga, Wreck of the Star Goddess, Dungrunglung. That's a lot of content. So I think we might have gone through like half the jungle's content. Ideally, my players will go to the Heart of Oobtau next, which, by the way, I am going to officially have them be able to move, if not twice as much, then maybe 3 times as much through the jungle, because now that they're level 5 and they've got, you know, multiple guides, have been in the jungle for a while, I'm just going to flavor that as being like, look, you guys, we don't have to hex crawl this every freaking hex again and have an encounter. That's just not, that's going to just further slow things down. You've already encountered, you know, at more than half of the encounters in the book, I think. And we just don't need to do that. So I think we're just going to, and I'm not going to eliminate encounters completely. I still want to have some. There's still some fun things to do in here. Still some creatures we haven't fought, or just some events we could still have. But I'm going to accelerate it to where they literally move 2 or 3 hexes like per encounter instead of 1 per encounter, which is pretty much what we've been doing. So ideally, next they go to the Heart of Oobtau. And it's really no combat. They just talk to Valindra and learn some more things. And they gain the teleport to go back to Port Nyanzaru, where they can follow up on some more story stuff and just resupply, do whatever they want to do there. I would assume, and they still want to get that ship, so they can go around and deal with the pirates, and they can go and do Wormheart Mine, Rackhammer, and all that, and then to Omu ultimately. So I would presume Heart of Oobtau, teleport to Port Nyanzaru, take a boat and go down to Firefinger, assuming they still want to they follow up with Azaka, because Azaka's still with them. She's a pretty decent party member now. They just got her back. They can complete her quest, and then from there, I need to zoom in on it. This is from Firefinger, they could go down to Needle's Bones, hit up Kir Sabal, and hit up Nangalore. Basically follow the path of the Company of the Yellow Banner. And then that would take care of the other quest they need to gain the ship, which is to check out Nangalore. And then from there, if you notice, they could hop over to Heart of Oobtau, then teleport back up to Port Nyanzaru, then they've got their ship. So, again, I've got all the information. If I was running the campaign, and if I was a player and I had all that information, that's exactly how I would do it. You know, if this were a Skyrim-style video game, I was looking at my map of points of interest and the quests that I had, that is the exact order that I would plot. Now, my players don't have any of that information. They have some of it. They know all these locations on the map. The only important information they don't know is the fact that the Heart of Oobtau is a teleporter back to town. Valindra has a portal that she uses to travel to and from Chult. and the players will essentially gain that. And I already, Wakanga, while they were in Port of Nine Zardu, said, hey, look, I've got a teleporter. If you find any of these out in the jungle, then you can go back to Port Nine Zardu. And that was before I even had a plan of where exactly I wanted to put the teleporters. Now I'm pretty sure I only need the one in the heart of Ubtao as a nice central location. I think that can be useful for both a to and from thing. The other option is maybe they want to teleport back to the heart of Ubtao and then just go to Nangalore and go up that way. They could certainly do that. That's an option. So I do want them to do this right half of the jungle just because I think there's some fun content in here. But I want to keep them level 5 for all that content. So I don't want to slow things down with too many hex crawls at this point, because I want them to hit up. And Heart of Ubtao is really just a role-playing dialogue scene. It shouldn't be. It's not like a dungeon or anything. But Firefinger is a mini dungeon. And Nangalore is a straight-up dungeon, the closest thing that anything in the jungle has of a dungeon crawl, I think. So those would be really fun to do, and the players will be level 5 for that. So ideally, I would like to keep them level 5 for that entire right half of the jungle, and then they are basically done jungle crawling, which I think is fine because we've done a lot. And then we'll begin their ship adventures, which will probably put them at level 6 after they do that whole right side. Again, this is all just presumed on what the players want to do. And they can decide to skip whatever they want. I did kind of tell them they have to do Oralunga and Nangalore to get the ship. But it might be a case of like, well, let's just go to Nangalore and then go back to Heart of Ubtao, teleport up and get our ship and go. That's fine too. They could do that. I would be a little sad about not doing like Firefinger and doing any of the Aarakocra Kir Sabal, but they could totally do that. But their ultimate goal should be to get the ship. And then with the ship at level 6, they can go around and hit up the pirates, finally follow up with the pirates at Jahaka Bay, which is the anchorage, which is a cool map. And then Gillian's personal quest will be to go to this temple ship, which I am converting a dungeon from the Turtle package that was put out by WotC, I believe last year, of a dungeon called Dangwaru. I want to put that map into this campaign as a dungeon the players will have to do to basically solve Gillian's personal quest, which I think will be fun. From there, the players can then take their boat all the way around here to Shilku Bay and hit up the Wormheart Mine and Hrakhamar, which will do Theron's personal quest. And from there, it's a hop, skip, and a jump away to Omu, which will basically bring us to the end game. And at some point, they will probably go from 6 to 7, I think, so that by the time they enter Omu, they are probably 7, maybe even 8. And then from there, I just have to somehow pace it out between Omu, Fane of the Night Serpent, and the Tomb of the Nine Gods to where they end up 8, 9, 10, 11, I think. And I'll figure that out as we go. This is way future planning. So that's the overall plan. I figure I should just update everybody on that because we're getting to the point now where we've actually, I've been so minutely focused on the immediate area around the PCs, which is how I plan. You can do some overarching stuff. Obviously, you need to know what's going on, and especially with me doing the Sohn Sister stuff, I had to read ahead for all that. Obviously, I've read the whole book, but in terms of me really focusing and planning every week, it's just been, okay, what are the players immediately at? Let me research that. Well, now that they are kind of done with this entire left side of the map, I'm starting to really look ahead and figure out, what's stored in the future. That being said, I don't know if we'll actually get even leave Oralunga next session because the players want to fight that wyvern. They are going to level up to 5, which and something I also recommend in any D&D campaign is really take your time with the players leveling up. I always say, at the end of a session, hey, you're going to get experience to level up next session, so have that stuff prepared. In other words, pick your spells ahead of time and all that, so you're not literally flipping through the book. And then we go over it. We have everybody kind of, like we're in a classroom session, everybody stands up and talks about what new abilities they're getting, how they work, and then we roll for hit points. We really spend a time with each person. So leveling up kind of takes up some time in whatever session it occurs in, but I think it's really useful to spend that time with each player and make sure everybody familiarizes themselves. What new spells did you take, or what kind of stuff did you do? Fun fact, Chris talked to me, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that he wanted to multi-class as a wizard with Manic. So he's going to go rogue wizard and become even more of a utility kind of monkey wrench Swiss Army knife character, which I think is a really neat character concept. And that's why I gave him the spellbook in Oralunga, because that's going to inspire him to multi-class into a wizard, so that'll be fun. But I think that will take up a good chunk of tomorrow's session, and then I've got a planned event with Zendala after that, because Mannix did contact her to follow up with, to tell her that they were going to Orlunga to get a lead on Artis Kimber. So Zendala will show up. Do need to play. It's been a while. Get rid of the Shield Guardian and turn it in. Yes, absolutely. I am. That will be useful because they'll be able to drop when they teleport to Port Nyanzaru. They'll be able to finally complete the Shield Guardian quest, which has been kind of a awkward thorn. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's been a flavorful thing, but I had to neuter the Shield Guardian so much because, well, I've talked about this a lot, but there's no way in a fucking hell I'm going to give the players a Shield Guardian. I think it's been a fun companion for them, even so, but I think they'll be uh, more accepting of turning in such a powerful ally when it really isn't all that powerful for them. And then I can give them like a proper cool reward, like some kind of magic items or something neat. So yes, ideally that will be a chance for them to turn in Vorn and a chance for them to drop off Salida, I think, because Salida will join them. I would presume they'd want to keep Azaka with them, and Azaka would be willing to stay with them if they do Firefinger. If they don't decide to do Firefinger and they skip it, then I think Azaka would probably not stick with them. So that'll be interesting. They could switch out their guides. It's kind of up to them. What probably won't happen is they won't be able to follow up with the Tabaxi or Inet, because if they teleport back to the city, that means they made it way before the other team, which is still like slowly going up the jungle. I don't have exact notes for that, but I don't think they'll have made it back to the city by the time the players do. Will Mannix ever be able to get his eye healed? Yes, Barry, and honestly, I'm shocked that they didn't ask the Oracle to do that. I don't think the Oracle can. I don't think it actually has, like, restoration spells, although as a DM I could just say it does. I mean, it does have cleric spells, though. So I'm kind of surprised that he didn't even bring it up. I was expecting that to be, a question. But no, he didn't ask, so. When they teleport back to Port Nyanzaru, however, that's their chance to finally go back to a city and get all that shit healed. So yes, they can. It'll be a fee, which we've got that in our house rules somewhere. I should put that in the Discord. I should put our house rules. Essentially, it's just a money sink, like getting those lingering injuries. In Storm King's Thunder, we had lingering injuries occasionally, mostly with Reese's player character Tim, and it was basically just a money sink. Like, it was like durability in RPGs, where we just had to like repair that player for a couple hundred gold or something, and it's a useful money sink. But it was like not debilitating at all, because literally it was a giant overland map, and we're constantly going from city to city. Whereas here, it has been a huge ongoing thing. I mean, how many sessions has it been since that Terrafolk encounter? Or no, it was when did he lose the eye? Was it the Flesh Golem? Where he got where he and Gillian both went down from the Flesh Golem? Was that it? I don't remember. But at some point, yeah, he damaged his eye. He did get his arm fixed, I believe, because that was from Camp Righteous, and I believe he got that fixed in Camp Vengeance, which was basically their outpost town. But I think he's had the eye problem for the entire journey, so it's been really interesting. The lingering injuries have been a lot more affecting on the players in this campaign, because they are not in a safe place. But teleporting back to town will give them finally a safe place to do that. Again, they don't know that that's what the Heart of Ubtao is for, but that's like the only thing close to them. They were going there originally, and then I kind of literally sidetracked them all the way up, which Chris talked to me and said, man, if that wasn't your plan, you effectively did that. And I was like, well, it's kind of my plan, and just kind of the way you guys ended up doing it. So, but yeah, they'll be able to go back to town and cure that. For this Wyvern fight, I'm a little worried that the players are just going to freaking kick its ass, because as strong as any one creature is, to a limit. I mean, obviously, if this is like an adult dragon, then one adult dragon is going to kill them all. But there's only one creature. Like, the action economy thing in D&D is such a big deal that you really can't have like boss creatures by themselves. They're just going to get surrounded. They're going to get flanked. They're going to get shut down. You know, they might get one or two powerful attacks off, but it's only got a 13 AC. This thing is going to die real quick. So what I think I'm going to do is, I teased this last time, but there were a number of bodies scattered around the Wyvern's lair, and I teased the fact that the Wyvern had previously killed a bunch of Yuan-Ti as they arrived into the Ziggurat at Orlunga. This is this kind of just rogue beast that's been terrorizing everyone. So, I believe when the players approach this creature with whatever they plan on doing, I'm going to have some of those bodies rise up into zombies and or skeletons and add a kind of wrinkle to the fight that will obviously awaken the wyvern. The only issue I see with doing that is the players may just completely pull back, in which case, you know, with the wyvern, with the undead fight the wyvern, and that kind of, like, I don't want to fuck myself with that too much. So I want to only pull it off if the players basically decide to do like a sneaky thing where they sneak up close to the wyvern, and then I can have you know, a bunch of bodies kind of attack them and just really fuck up their plans. And I kind of want to do that just as a slight wrinkle to A, shutting down any kind of sneak thing they have, and B, creating some more enemies on the board. Because again, one enemy is just, no matter how powerful it is, it's just not gonna do much. It's gonna be disappointing in either way. And I've got this nice little treasure hoard, so I want to make them kind of work for it. And they've gotten a lot of good treasure from Orlunga too. Orlunga has certainly been dangerous in a lot of ways, but this is basically their last threat here. So I think I want to do that if I can pull it off well. And it just kind of depends on how the players roll it. If they all stand back and say like, okay, we're all going to shoot this thing at once, then if I have a bunch of zombies raise up, then that's, I don't know if that's going to actually change anything. And if anything, just make the wyvern like fly off. Which, that's an option too. If they all attack it and a bunch of undead raise up, maybe the wyvern attacks them once and then just flies away, and they have to deal with the undead, and then maybe it flies back, or something. You know, it'll incur attacks opportunity occasionally, but I can try to use its flight to its advantage. I could give it legendary actions. I haven't thought about that. Let's see. Let me get some undead. Can I search undead, or will that work? Nope. Gotta get the zombies out. So I hope I'm not being too cheap, because my players a lot of times rely on Roll20 visual stuff to tell them what's going on, and I did not put any actual dead bodies here. So I hope I'm not going to cheat the system too much by saying, oh, by the way, there were bodies. Because I did tease the fact that there were some dead bodies scattered around when they first saw this, and I guess I'll mention that again when they approach it, just so it's not too unfair. Oops, zombie. There we go. I could even do I don't want to do a dinosaur zombie, do I? I think it'd just be regular zombies. I won't be too crazy. Zombie. There we go. Alright. And I could throw some skeletons in there as well, which is just a zombie with less flesh, I think. Even though mechanically they're actually quite a bit different. I don't know. Skeletons have less mass than a zombie, but way more armor class, which I always found is funny. I guess they're wearing like the remains of their armor, but zombies aren't. Let's see. I don't know. I'm going to keep these all in the GM layer, and I'm just going to kind of play it by ear with this and just determine how many I want to raise up. And a lot of this depends on what the players decide to do here. If they decide to just kind of sneak up on it and unload with it as much as they can, they want to try to get some sneak attacks on, then I can have these things kind of rise up in the area. So maybe I'll put just, you know, something like that, maybe just a couple laying around. What does the dynamic lighting look for this? So if they go here, what do you see? Obviously those guys will be, okay, you don't even see the wyvern until you're over here. They may go it from this point of view or this point of view. That'll also be really interesting. So if they sneak in from this point of, see, this is what I thought they would see, is not be able to see it until they get to here, but apparently they told me they can actually see all of this. Although I think I changed that setting, didn't I? Enforced line of sight. So I think that should be updated now, where they can't see the wyvern until they actually like can physically see the wyvern. I think 3 zombies and 2 skeletons is enough to shake things up. I don't want to do too many bodies rising up, but just enough to screw the players up briefly. Let's roll for some hit points real quick. 3d8 plus 9 for zombies. Zombies have pretty low armor class. 28's a beefy zombie. 17, not so much. 4. But that was my initial idea, was to put some, have some of the because that's something that happens in our campaign. Is I've introduced kind of a Walking Dead element, where the dead don't stay dead. Bodies rise up into undead, and that's a cool reminder to constantly tell the players that that's a thing that happens. Make the wyvern undead as well. Oh man. You know, I haven't introduced that before, that, like, creatures they kill. I mean, I assume they're smart enough now where every creature they kill, they kind of do a coup de grace on. But I did introduce that one time where they fought undead dinosaurs, so they certainly know that creatures are also subject. 2d8 plus 4. God, skeletons have no hit points. They're very shitty. Wow, a 6 hit point skeleton. Poor bastard. That's literally as worse as you can possibly get. And none of these are particularly difficult. It's just to kind of add, again, add basically new targets. I don't expect any of these to do any damage. I just want to absorb some blows so that the frickin' wyvern can do shit. Hey, start, Sean. Equal the zombies to the number of players. Equal action economy plus the wyvern. Would you include skeletons with that, with number of players too? Because I'm going to throw some skeletons in there. Which, skeletons, I think they do about as much damage as zombies, don't they? They have a plus 4, average 5. Plus 3, average 4. Skeletons are actually offensively stronger than zombies, just a hell of a lot. Well, they have better armor class, but less hit points. What I may do, and you're probably going to see this live, is I'm going to play around with the location of these enemies too, depending on which path the players decide to go in on. Because obviously I would rather have the undead attack the players than the wyvern. I don't want to make it easier for them, make them work for it. Alright, I'll add one more zombie. You talked me into it. Let's GR 3d8 plus 9. It's a little weak zombie. Just depending on where the players end up coming in here, but generally there'll be bodies strewn about this area. I just haven't created the bodies on the map, and I feel like I can't really. Well, because I think the players already saw this location, so I don't want to just cheat and add more bodies and blood in here. That feels kind of cheap. Zombies do have more HP. Yeah, that undead fortitude ability, that's so funny. Everybody just kind of rolls their eyes when that happens. He's not dead yet. He's going to stick around. They're just annoying. But I am going to try to use the wyvern a little more tactically interesting and actually let it fly around and use its flight better. I did roll for its hit points, and it's slightly below average hit points. Still 100 hit points is pretty solid. Armor class is not great, but it's got a fly speed of 80. So, and it would not fight to the death either. If it gets really injured, it's just going to fucking leave. Which puts I think, is an advantage to the players, because that's essentially, it has less. If you have an enemy flee, then it has less hit points, if that makes sense. You know, like if you have their threshold, it'd be like, okay, well, they're at like 25 hit points, it's just going to leave at this point. I could still have it attack and then leave, I guess. It'll take whatever attacks of opportunity, but it does have a 10-foot range, so it could do an interesting thing where it is hovering In the air, it feels kind of cheap to do, but if it does any kind of flyby attacks, it could stay, in theory, 10 feet in the air and still attack people with its bite and its stinger, and then they can't melee attack it back. So that's a pretty big thing. I could do a ghoul. How? Tell me about ghouls. Are ghouls created like zombies are? I guess they are undead. I always thought ghouls. What is the difference between a ghoul and a zombie? Other than the fact that ghouls are stronger, obviously. Um, that would be a funny. To me, changing these from zombies to ghouls is like a Oblivion or a Skyrim game, like leveling up the world as you level up. You know, it's like suddenly, oh, well, all these undead that were zombies before now happen to be rising up as ghoul. Now I could flavor that where the death curse is getting stronger, and so it's making more powerful undead. I mean, there's ways for me to do that, but that's just kind of a funny thing that reminds me. I was like, oh, now you guys made level 5, huh? Well, now you're gonna fight ghouls instead of zombies. But I could introduce that if that's a thing. Like at least one or two of them could be ghouls. I don't think I've ever had their stupid paralyzing claws ever go off in any game ever, by the way. I don't know if the DC is just really low on that or what. Disgusting token on them. Yeah, it is really low. It's a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. They have to really shit the bed on that one. Paralyze is a big deal, though, and they definitely do more damage. I don't know why they have a bite attack when you... Well, I guess bite does more damage, but it's only a +2. Why are they less proficient with their own mouth than they are their claws? That doesn't make any sense. Their claws are like a finesse weapon. I don't understand you, ghoul. No one had fortitude and they could paralyze the players. Yeah, I think they are they're a more dynamically interesting enemy. I like creatures that deal more damage, can be more dangerous, and don't outstay their welcome, which is exactly the problem with zombies. They just kind of hang around for too long. They're just meat sacks, which I guess is thematically appropriate for a zombie. You have 12 and 22 hit points. Yeah. CR1, it is... Ghouls speak common? You can fucking talk to a ghoul? Man. I've got ghouls all wrong. I didn't know that. I thought they were just like monsters. I learn something new every day now that I'm actually looking at a damn character sheet. Intelligence of 7. It's not terribly clever, but it is... So it's sentient, whereas a zombie is not, obviously, or a skeleton. Alright. Let's throw some ghouls in there. In my campaign, I've never treated a gombi. Combination ghoul and zombie. I've never treated a ghoul as sentient before. Incapable of speech. Fighting is one for they are paralyzed. That makes sense. Oh yeah, because paralyzed you get like advantage, don't you? Or auto crit or something. Throw in a CR17 Draco Lich. Oh man. That would be an amazing fight though. Man, that's an idea. Later when they fight the dragon in Wormheart Mine. Something I want to do is play around with the fact that all these creatures become undead. I'm assuming they're coup de grace everybody and doing the Walking Dead thing where you just kind of walk around and stab everybody in the head to make sure they don't reanimate. Which is kind of how we've treated the undeadness. Former High Priest of the Temple turning into powerful zombie ghouls. That could be interesting. I feel like the Oracle has kind of dominion over this area in terms of it's just been Yuan-Ti stuff and defenses, but it doesn't have control over the Wyvern and what the Wyvern's been doing. I don't think ghouls would be able to make it out of this room, though, so I could just... I mean, do I literally just have ghouls kind of rise up in place of the zombies here? Let's see, what are your hit points like Mr. Ghoul. It's the same as a zombie, isn't it? 5d8. The average is the same, but the numbers are not. $22. Straight average. $24. A little better. Well, my idea was for these bodies to be literally kills that the wyvern has killed. So I've talked about how the fact that this wyvern has been nesting here in Oralunga and attacks anybody that gets near it. Creates a lair here and has accumulated a lot of cool treasure because it just brings bodies back and they're filled with shit. And then the players actually found the Yuan-Ti camp, this same force that was heading to Oralunga, was attacked by the wyvern. So I'm flavoring the fact that these bodies are mainly of the Yuan-Ti that were originally part of the force the players just battled with. But they are now, of course, little DM magic. They happen to be reanimating when the players approach the wyvern to fight it. So I don't know how to add in... because I use the idea for basically the former priests of the temple were kind of like the mummies. That was kind of the mummy tease I did, which the players I talked about that last week on Crafting Annihilation. The players just noped right out of that entire encounter, which was kind of funny. Although I did force them to have some skill checks for it. Elves are immune to ghoul paralyze. Elves are bullshit is kind of what I've learned. Elves are straight bullshit. You can quote me on that. She doesn't have that in here, does she? What about half-elves? Are half-elves... Because they're immune to charm, right? They're immune to charm and sleep. I don't think any of us have actually played an elf. Oh, that's a cool damn picture. I don't think I've ever seen this picture before. Boy, that's a lot of elves. This is from Mordenkainen's. Do I not have the player's handbook in here? That's weird. Oh, it's probably under elf. I searched elves. There we go. Elf. I dreadst. Now you got me looking at frickin' elves. I still think elves are bullshit. Fey Ancestry. Advantage on 7th throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. Yeah, nothing about paralyze. Elves don't need to sleep. That's fucking bullshit right there. They meditate for 4 hours a day. Yeah, so what would happen if I had a damn elf in this campaign? And my whole thing is like, you can't long rest in the jungle. They can say, well, I can just meditate for 4 hours a day in the long rest. Then I'm like, oh, elves are bullshit. Stupid elves. Elves. First ghouls out. Yeah, I think I read about ghoul lore at one point. It was actually pretty cool. It was like a nasty, like, cannibal thing, too, wasn't it? There is some neat lore to be found in D&D, I find. I certainly don't use all of it, but there's some good shit in there. So yeah, I'm okay with replacing... Let's see, I rolled 22 and 24, didn't I? Yeah. Replacing some of these zombies as ghoul, just to make things a bit spicier, especially because the players did come off that last fight with flying colors, and I can really... I mean, they've all got like full... They didn't expend hardly anything. So I feel like I can challenge them a little bit more. And I do plan on having some good loot here. Where's my notes on the loot? So I was going to use basically a treasure hoard of a CR... Really the higher CR level, because technically a wyvern is a CR 6 creature, I believe. So I was using the treasure hoard that was from like 5 to 10, so it's got a pretty damn good treasure hoard. And I think I rolled everything and then divided that by half because it's ridiculous. But I mean, they've got like hundreds and thousands of like gold pieces. Like it's a huge payout. That might be too much, but I'm also gonna throw in a potion of greater healing, a wand of magic missiles, which is just a really fucking solid thing that probably Gillian and Mannix will fight over, and some gems. So mainly just like gold loot, but certainly worth the fight. And it's an entirely optional fight. This is an entirely optional fight. The players could just leave Oralunga and not fuck with this at all. So this is very much like the mummy fight, where I tease the fact like, hey, this is here. If you want to jump in there and fight it, you can, and there will be loot for you. Or you can just peace out. And they peaced out for the mummy, although they did get one piece of loot out of it, which is funny. That was kind of cool the way they did it. But here they were going to have to work for it, and I want to make them freaking work for it. Let's get rid of the shittiest zombies to replace 24, 28, 17, and 18. Oh, sorry, zombies. You are actually ghouls now. You are actually ghouls. There we go. That's a nice little mix of all kinds of undead. That's more character sheets for me to keep track of, but creates a little bit more variety. And variety is the spice of life. For sure. So the players will think they can just sneak up on this wyvern. They will have to roll snake checks, stealth checks, sneak checks. What am I trying to say? Roll a snake check, please. When a creature is unconscious, technically, I believe it is. It says it's not aware of its surroundings. Thank you. I don't want to spell that. Unconscious. Just because I'm a writer doesn't mean I can spell. An unconscious creature is incapacitated, can't move or speak, and is unaware of its surroundings. So you could flavor that as you don't have to roll a sneak check at all, but I think you should, because that's such a classic thing, is like sneaking in somewhere with the sleeping, creature, the sleeping dragon or whatever. You're still having to sneak. Like you can still wake a you can still wake a sleeping creature up. So how would you all flavor that? Would you just use its passive perception even though it's not aware? Would I roll perception with disadvantage and hide that? Would I just make it a DC roll for the players and not make it a contested check at all? What should be the stealth check, assuming the players want to handle this at least somewhat stealthily? And basically, as soon as they are in line of sight and they want to do anything other than retreat, I would have them roll some kind of stealth check, I think, in order for the wyvern to wake up. Because they will try to definitely launch some attacks on it. And no matter what they stealthily sneak in with, I think I will use that to fuck up their plans and launch the undead right under their feet. Which feels a little cheap because you want to reward them for being stealthy, but also whatever. They got full health. They're doing well. Kaless is a half drow. Yep. Snick check. Passive perception. Passive perception is a 14. That's pretty solid for any creature. So you'd have to roll. Actually, what's the rule there? Does passive perception beat ties, or does the sneak? Does the sneak check? Jesus. Sneak check. I would think that the person rolling the check would win ties. So I think a 14 would beat the wyvern's passive 14. So you'd only need a 14 sneak check. But I would make everybody who wants to sneak up to the wyvern roll that check, or if the whole group is rolling up, then do a group check. Could be fine, which is this working together. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's when they just two or more characters. Yeah, two or more characters can't really stealth together. Group check, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, so it's just half the. If half the entire team wants to sneak up there, then you could make a group check. More than likely, it'll only be a couple of ones, and I assume the rest want to hang down in the back. Yeah. It kind of depends on what they do. If they all want to move forward, Then it'll be a group check. If they really want to decide, okay, you, and you are moving forward, then it'll probably be individual checks at that point. Maybe. I feel like you should be rewarded if you roll a really good sneak check and you can get right up on it. I don't want to do a rule like every square or some bullshit. You have to roll a sneak check, but maybe I could do it like if however far they roll, that's how close they get. In any case, I can let them get to that point, but they won't get an attack off because instead the undead will begin to stir around them. And the undead stirring will then wake up the wyvern, and essentially the players can still get into position, but I'm trying to negate their surprise round because surprise rounds can be devastatingly powerful, especially for that stupid assassin who can just auto crit for bananas damage. And just destroy my poor wyvern. So I think that will be an effective countermeasure. Will be the undead waking up. Obviously, the wyvern will wake up at that moment, and then it'll just be initiative right there. And hopefully, the players are bounced up enough to where the undead are kind of all intermixed among them. And then at that point, the initiative roll means everything because if I roll really bad on initiative with my creatures, then they're still going to kick my ass. But at least I've got my creatures a fighting chance. Yes, I do think it will take to the air. The problem is I'm worried literally about that opening salvo of like the players just brutally murdering the shit out of it in that first round. So my goal is to try to at least negate that surprise round. Even if they make their stealth checks and get up close to it, I will unleash the undead on them. And if they fail the stealth checks, then the wyvern wakes up. And then it gets interesting because then I could hold the undead back until a better moment, or I could wake them up at that same moment. So that gets more interesting. If they actually fail the stealth check, the wyvern wakes up naturally on its own, we roll initiative, and then maybe a round later the undead wake up because of the battling or something. But yeah, the wyvern will definitely take to the skies. This is a big area, so he can fly up there. So much of this depends on the damn initiative, too, on where I can go with my wyvern compared to them. God, I'm so bad at rolling initiative for some reason. It's frustrating. And he's got a 0 deck, so I assume his initiative's a freaking +0, which is not great. You'd think a wyvern would be more dexterous. Why is it all strength? Jeez. That's weird. But yeah, you take to the air, and I mentioned this earlier in the session, but I want to try to take advantage of the fact that it can actually hover in the air 10 feet above the ground and still hit people and just stay up there, which creates an interesting dilemma for a lot of the players that really neuters their attack. So I'm hoping to make this more tactically interesting, but assuming they don't just freaking completely shut my poor wyvern down. Be cool if Celeste gets in there, gets a massive hit on him, then the undead wake up and surround her. Yeah, I don't want my poor wyvern to die, but that's most likely. I would assume that's their plan. I'm trying, being a DM is just partly mostly trying to anticipate what the hell your players are going to do at any given moment. And I assume they're going to want to try to sneak up and, at least on her case, sneak up and do a melee attack on it. And, yeah, I haven't quite decided if my initial plan is to let her sneak up to it, assuming she gets the sneak check. I got snakes on the mind, man. I'm staring at snakes all the place. If she makes the sneak check, then I think I still kind of want the undead to wake up. Like maybe she gingerly steps around a body, and this would be like the cinematic moment where she's stealthily sneaking up to the wyvern. The wyvern's still sleeping, but then you see the corpses around her start to move and form and groan, and then right when she's about to attack the wyvern, you hear this groaning of the zombies and ghouls, and the wyvern's eye flares open. That cool scene, and then combat occurs, and there's no surprise round at that point. Everybody's still in place, but I've eliminated the surprise round, so I think that can use well. Use 10 plus the skill bonus to determine the stealth passive for enemy. You mean the passive perception? A big supply of wyvern meat. My precious wyvern. I know, I gotta let my darlings die, yeah. Yeah, I try to make the wyvern fun. I just want to try to make this a more interesting battle, basically. I think with 100 hit points, it'll stick around. I don't think Because, importantly, the players are not leveling up because I kind of just told them, like, hey, you're basically going to get one free long rest here. And the players said, well, we'd rather fight the wyvern now and then long rest and replenish all those things, which is probably the smart way to do it, especially given that they just kicked ass in the previous fight. And they're still generally pretty healthy. So they're coming into this fight still at level 4, which is important to note. But they will get a chance to long rest right after this. So they'll probably be more free to unleash all of their things, which is always fun to see. Reroll sticks. Could the combat from the other room have awoken the wyvern? Yeah. Yeah, it probably should have. God damn it, Barry, now you're rethinking everything. Yeah, it probably should have. Okay. And did the PC short rest? I don't think they short rested, but they might want to. I mean, this whole combat and the dialogue scene probably is, only 10 minutes have elapsed. But that would be enough to stir the wyvern. Yeah. Yeah, that wyvern's got to be fucking awake now. This is my concerned face. Okay. New plan. Let's go back to the drawing board. The wyvern isn't here. The wyvern woke up, heard the commotion, flew outside. Did like a circle. It's in the area. The players sneak around and just see a pile of treasure. No wyvern in sight. Okay? Naturally, they're going to go up there and try to get the treasure. That's when I spring. And I need to decide on the order. But I could have the undead attack naturally. In round 1, the players sneak up there. The undead are disturbed. They begin attacking. Round 2, the wyvern flies in. It flies in. It sees all this shit happening. It sees its treasure hoard being stolen and a bunch of bodies. It comes in and starts attacking them, and then it's already in place on its, it's 10 feet up there. It can fly from 80 feet away. The players don't even see the wyvern coming. I think I like that. I think I like that better. I think I like that a lot better. Okay. Bless you, Barry, and damn you for making me redo all this. Alright, so wyvern's not there. It was disturbed by the fighting. Even if the players don't short rest, that's enough time for it to wake up. And it really doesn't want to necessarily just poke its head around here. It's just going to kind of fly around and basically do what it does, which is guard its territory, like kind of patrol it outside. So it's not here. The players come in, just see this open treasure. Wyvern's not there. Oh, that's even scarier, I think. You saw a giant wyvern there, now it's not there. I think that's cool. Players are like, oh shit, where'd that wyvern go? I think I like that better. It's not there. The players are going to be tense. They want to go up there and get that treasure. As soon as anybody gets in there, whether they stealth or not, I'll let them stealth. They can stealth all day. I'll let them roll all kinds of stealth checks. Sneak checks. And then, as soon as they get up there and start scrambling the coins, zombies, ghouls, and skeletons start getting awoken. They'll start stirring. They sense fresh meat. And they're all up on it. Yeah. That's round 1. They're like, oh shit, okay, we just got a bunch of undead here. There were bodies, that's right. I guess we gotta fight these bodies off. And then round 2, the wyvern swoops in. Makes a screeing sound. I need a fucking sound effect. Do we have sound effects I can use? Did they get rid of the sound effects now? Let's see. I forgot you can upload your own. That's right. I think they got rid of like the ones I was using before, like the raptor sounds and the Godzilla sounds. I would have to upload my own track. I would love to get some dragon roar, but they only have, I think these are only music tracks and not like sound effects. Something I used to do better of is actually having sound effects. I haven't done that in a while. I'm bad about creating that extra level of immersion. I don't think they have sound effects anymore. I guess I could always look for them and upload them myself. I like that idea a lot, though. I like that. So they fight the undead. Round 1. Probably things are going well. They might, I mean, they'll probably take out some undead in round 1. Round 2, wyvern appears, starts fucking them up. And then it gets real tricky. How many good monster sounds? Yeah, that's sound burst. I think that was the one I used. Yeah, I used that for like the. In fact, when this campaign started, they still had that, didn't they? Because I used that for Arameg, the dragon turtle. I used like a cool like Godzilla sound effect when it came up, and I used raptor sound effects a lot when they were earlier in the campaign, like Jurassic Park sound, which is great. Tabletop audio. Which one was that? Oh, this one. Let's just search like dragon. Sleeping dragon. Is this a song? Alright, I apologize everybody if this is loud. Oh, that'd be a really cool sound if I was actually doing the sleeping wyvern. That actually is a sound effect. Unfortunately, it's not an actual roar, but that'd be really neat if I was doing the first plan. No roar! Boo! Boo! Ah, well. I like that plan, though. And I think that will be what the players will do next. And honestly, that could take up the majority of the session. Between that and then leveling up to 5 afterwards, that might be the majority of the sessions. Yeah, hit me up, Mike, on Discord or something. If you have any good resources for music now that Roll20 got rid of their thing. Real quick, I want to talk about my Zendala plans. If the players get to this point, which is... so Mannix contacted Zendala on their way to Orlunga and said, hey, you know, I followed up on a lead on your father, and this is really the first time he's contacted her. I kind of reminded him about it. We've all forgotten about it. And pointed her to Orlunga. And so my plan is to have her meet up with them at Orlunga in a really hilariously violent way of miscommunication, because Zendala doesn't know about any of the allies they've gathered. And she is a very powerful sorcerer with a huge amount of spells. So, when the players leave Orlunga, you know, they go down those giant stairs, they are going to emerge onto a war zone. They are going to see a fireball has exploded, scorched the ground around them. They're going to find chunks of dinosaur everywhere, and yes, that is Theron's Stegosaurus buddy has just been blown up. Vorn has been transformed into a chicken, little metal chicken running around, and then Zaka is going to be like paralyzed, like mid-shaping form, and Zendala is just going to be standing there, like, I'm glad I showed up. There were all these nasty monsters waiting outside for you guys. I want to make this awesome scene of a way to show off Zendala's power purely in a cutscene, and then all the players are like, those are our friends. Because Zendala doesn't know, and she's not... So Zendala is kind of evil, but she's not, like, evil, I guess. I'm playing her, she's just kind of, a selfish evil, which is kind of when evil comes down to, is do you care about yourself or do you care about others, in terms of the morality chart. And she's definitely on the evil scale of that. She's not necessarily malicious or cruel, though, but she's doing that because literally she thought she was called to Orlunga to, get a follow-up with the players and the characters and her father. her father, and then flew in and just fucking wrecked havoc right there at the entrance. And then they come out and they're like, "Oh shit, what just happened?" Um, so that'll be just a funny exchange. It's not meant to be combat at all. That's just meant to be kind of a funny, darkly humorous exchange between them. It'll be interesting to see how forthcoming Mannix is about her father, because he did learn about stuff. Which, by the way, he didn't actually. Um, he was told that Artis went here, but he didn't actually ask the Naga about Artis Kimber, did he? Now that I'm thinking about it. In fact, none of the. I had notes in my Google Doc about if the players asked the Oracle various questions, like they kind of did with Zatembe at Port Nine Zaru, and they did not. They got the whole big story about the main quest, which is what I was expecting to give them, but then they didn't actually sit there and quiz the Oracle or follow up with anything. So I may have to forcibly mention that offhand. Like, by the way, Mannix, Mr. Mannix, the person you're looking for has been here. Just kind of, be more forthcoming with that information. That way, the Zendala thing, he actually has that information. He can choose to give that to her or not. The idea is that she can polymorph, so she's been transforming into some kind of flying creature and just flying around the jungle searching on her own. And she said, she's obviously, and this is a way to show off the fact that yes, she is better on her own. She just kicks ass and isn't really in any danger, would rather travel alone, but still uses Mannix as a font of information. And she will even throw like a sack of gold at Mannix and say, hey, here's some advance payment for getting that information. The information he'll get is that, yes, Artis did come here, talk to the Oracle, and then the Oracle pointed him south towards Omu, and the Oracle is not even sure why. That's just kind of the way Oracles work in my universe. This is just where you needed to go, and she'll tell Mannix that you will find Artis Kimber, but you won't follow him necessarily. I don't want to, because I don't want the players to go straight south and go to Omu from here. But I do want to tease the fact that they will meet Artis at this point. I guess probably in Omu. But it will be interesting to see if they give Zendala that information, if they're at all forthcoming with her. Even if they try to break out combat, she's just gonna basically escape. Getting her ability. I don't think they would, but I mean, who knows when the players are involved. But the plan is just to be a fun dialogue session, not necessarily a combat encounter. And the idea there is she will just give them like some money, and she will then transform back into some kind of giant flying, probably a pterodactyl or something, and just fly away towards Omu. And at that point, I have to figure out how best to follow up with this story again, and see if the players. I haven't quite decided still on how I want that to go. I do not want Zendala to join the party. The players have had way too many NPCs join the party. I'm pretty much done with that, unless they want to exchange guides out. And she's way too strong. Way too strong. Just huge, high-level spellcaster. So I think this will be a fun way to follow up with that quest line. And then I have to decide on how I want to actually end this quest line, and the players will ultimately have to confront Zendala. I don't know if they should meet Artis first, if they should meet Zendala first. Maybe they meet Artis, and then I would love it if they met Artis and then he Mannix then contacted Zendala. Zendala shows up and then attacks them all. That could be a really exciting, fun boss battle. That's still way in the future, though, and that will probably go down in Omu, or maybe if the players, on their way to Omu, maybe they somehow do this big encounter like outside Omu or something. But it'll be way later in the campaign when they actually follow up with this. So that's my idea there. I just wanted to share that. Assuming we get that far, this is the Wyvern fight. Who knows how long that's going to take, and then leveling up, and then exiting Orlunga and all that. I haven't really planned much beyond that. I assume all those events will take up the next session. Then after that, it'll basically be a bunch of jungle crawl. Although I mentioned less of that, I'm less inclined to do too many hex crawl events, and then plan for the Heart of Ubtao. Hopefully not too soon after that. I think that will bring a close. Trevor, do you think the party would try and steal from Artis and Dragonbait? I would never underestimate the party doing anything like that, sure. Which is why I also don't want to introduce Artis too soon. I definitely want him to be a lot later. And plus, all the personal quests are designed to be not completed too early. So, hopefully the party, when they do meet Artis, it's not until way later when they're basically closer to Omu. and then they could follow up with Zendala and deal with all of that. But yeah, I don't have that's still planning way in the future. I don't have too many contingency plans right now. We can talk about that as we get further in the campaign, but I just thought that was a fun way to kind of follow up with Zendala in a very funny way and also show off her power. So, all right, that will do it for me for Crafting Annihilation. Thank you all for joining me for the session. If you like the content, do check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. New Discord channel is up. You can chat in there and tune in tomorrow for our next Tomb of Annihilation play session. I'll see y'all then.